Hello, my name is Kim Heinrich, and I am the Global Marketing Director at Meritas. I would like to welcome and thank each of you for joining us on today's webinar. For those of you who are new to Meritas, Meritas is an established global alliance of closely connected yet independent law firms that each offer a full range of high-quality specialized legal services. We were built upon a rigorous system for monitoring and enhancing the quality of our member firms, and have been connecting clients with carefully qualified business legal expertise in over 250 markets since 1990. Meritas Capability webinars are regularly presented by Meritas members. Archived webinars can be found on our website at meritas.org. Now, before I get started, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items. Meritas offers the ability to listen to our webinars through your computer speakers. If at any time you have difficulty hearing the presentation, you may call into the associated telephone line instead. All phone lines will be muted, and if you experience any technical difficulties, please press *0 at any time to connect with a support technician. Again, you will be muted, but if you do have a question, please ask it via the questions module on your screen. If you do not see this section, you may need to expand the selection by clicking on the gray bar that says questions. Lastly, in the next few days, I will distribute a copy of the presentation, a recording of the webinar, as well as each of the presenters' contact details. So let's get started. Our webinar today will be presented by Rima Murad and Jean Aboud. Jean is a senior level associate in the Saudi Arabia office of Meritas member firm BSA. He specializes in corporate and commercial law, foreign investment, securities, telecom, regulatory and corporate matters, as well as projects. His expertise covers joint ventures, mergers and acquisitions, public and private offerings, and corporate restructuring. Rima is a partner with the corporate and M&A practice in the Dubai office of Meritas member firm BSA. She is an experienced corporate and insurance lawyer who has practiced in the UAE for over 14 years. Rima specializes in advising insurance companies, corporate organizations, financial institutions, energy companies, and private equity funds on a wide range of legal issues. These include M&A transactions, due diligence, commercial agreements, commercial-related disputes, IT-related transactions, and various regulatory matters. So with that, and thank you again, Rima and John. And Rima, are you ready to get started?
Yes, thank you very much for the intro.
Thank you.
And basically, I would like to thank everybody for attending the session today. We're hosting a webinar to discuss the latest changes in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that affect the promotion and development of foreign direct investments. Basically, before I start talking about the presentation, I just want to give a brief about our firm, who we are, what we do, our background. Both me and Jean are lawyers with BSA Ahmed bin Hazim and Associates. We're the Meritas contact firm in the UAE, Oman, and KSA and Lebanon. Our office was founded in 2001, more than 20 years ago, and we're currently a regional law firm with offices across the region, as I said, including offices covering the UAE and KSA, Oman, Lebanon, and Iraq. I personally worked between the UAE and Oman for the past, between the UAE and KSA and Oman for the past 8 years. And this gave me a lot of insight about doing business in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And I personally worked on the promotion of various projects conducted under our KSA office. We do provide all types of legal services from our offices, including basically corporate and M&A, litigation, arbitration, banking and finance, commercial construction, insurance and reinsurance, employment, intellectual property, TMT, VAT, compliance and anti-money laundering, and regulatory disputes. Basically, as a full-service law firm, BSA has a comprehensive knowledge of local laws and regulations. Our people are coming from different backgrounds. We have more than 100 lawyers now across our offices. that speak many languages coming from different nationalities and are registered in various jurisdictions. We have access to the different courts in the jurisdictions we work in, and this is something that differentiates us from other firms. We have the right of audience in all the jurisdictions, and we only work with local lawyers in all the jurisdictions we work in. In the presentation today, basically, we will talk about many changes introduced by the KSA government affecting investments, foreign investments, and the ability to do business in Saudi Arabia. I'm sure most of the attendees have heard about the latest announcements that affects the way corporations and companies will continue to do business in Saudi Arabia or will consider how to do business in Saudi Arabia. Jean will take forward the discussions on these topics, and to give you a brief about the matters we will discuss, basically the presentation will cover in the first section the KSA Vision of 2030, which is the main motto behind all the changes we're seeing, and it sets in a way or another a roadmap for the goals that the government is looking to achieve by 2030 on so many levels, but mainly on the diversification of its economy, on the way they do business, on the promotion of their jurisdiction as a destination for foreign investments and for promotion of certain activities in the region, and so on and so forth. In the second section, we will discuss the overall business environment in KSA with some basic information that investors must know. In the third sections, we will go through the major regulatory and legal changes introduced lately, including the changes introduced on the level of the company's law and all other laws and regulations. And in the last sections, we will discuss the way to do business in Saudi Arabia and from the best legal forms to consider or the structures that are most common and popular. We will also cover taxation, Saudization, NEOM as a project, and so on and so forth. So basically, I will pass on the floor to Jean to start his presentation. I will act as a moderator just with the intention of making this presentation as interactive as possible. If you have any questions at any point of time, please feel free to put them forward. If you need to open a discussion about a certain topic, also please put a question under the questions section, and we will be more than happy to discuss it throughout the presentation, not necessarily at the end. In addition to this, we will discuss at the end some of the most popular Q&As that are frequently asked by investors when it comes to Saudi Arabia, and that will help giving you a more comprehensive approach as to how businesses is being conducted or the things that any investor should be aware of before coming or discussing investments in Saudi. Jean, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rima. Thank you, Crystal. Well, basically, I'm going to start up with a background about what is going on in Saudi, and basically the global environmental. Today in Saudi, there's many investment opportunities because of the global environment has encouraged like international and cross-border investment more than any time today, and the excessive taxation, the limited opportunities, and the slow growth that has happened has pushed investors for new global opportunities. And one of these opportunities today is Saudi Arabia. Now, there is a lot of inflow of investment happening to the Gulf today, and mainly to KSA because it is the biggest country and it has the biggest economy in the region, in the Gulf. Saudi Arabia has seen this, and being depending heavily on oil, it has tried to divest itself and push foreign investors into investing in other areas other than oil. And with that comes the Saudi Vision 2030, which was first announced in April 2016. Now, more background about Saudi. The law of governance, or the basic law of governance, acts as the constitution of Saudi Arabia, which was only enacted recently in 1992. So the basic law is it says that, or one of the most important thing what it enacts is that the Islamic law, or Sharia, is the basic and primary law that serves as the guidelines for all legal matters in Saudi Arabia. Now, no regulation is deemed lawful if it violates the principle of Sharia. So it is the umbrella that every law has to come under. Now, Sharia is comprised of a collection of fundamental principles from various sources, such as the Quran, the ijma, which is the consensus, or some kind of jurisprudence. And in addition to Sharia, there are Saudi Arabian laws is derived from several legislations. Most common are royal orders, high orders, royal decrees, council of minister resolutions, and so forth. And all of these should not conflict with Sharia. Now, everything comes from the king, and all these powers are going down from there. In the past years, there have been some serious development towards opening or modernizing the kingdom, which is historically conservative, to improve the legislative, to codify the legislation while remaining coherent with Sharia. Now, here we go to Vision 2030, which is, let's say, it's the main drive against what is happening today in Saudi. The Vision 2030 is a strategic framework developed by the Saudi Council of Economic and Development Affairs, SEDA. Now, SEDA has been created as a sub-cabinet in the Council of Ministers. It is head by MBS, the Crown Prince today, and with it, it is leading everything that is happening and all the change in the laws that is happening today in Saudi. It includes a number of goals, reform strategies to mainly reduce Saudi Arabia dependence on oil, and with that diversify its economy and attract foreign talent and investment to the kingdom. And especially lately, to put Saudi as a destination for international business headquarters. I'm not sure if you have seen, there has been a latest announcement about that companies should move their headquarters in the region if they want to deal with the government of Saudi Arabia. Now, Vision 2030 is based on three themes: vibrant society, thriving economy, and ambitious nation. These three objectives that they put on, basically, it's to make Saudi as a tourism hub, which historically it was not. So they want to increase the Umrah visitors, increase the number of Saudi heritage sites, promote cultural growth in the kingdom, and diversify the economy, unlock underdeveloped industries such as manufacturing, renewable energy, and tourism. Modernizing the curriculum and standards of the Saudi educational institutions, and we have worked with the Ministry of Education and Ministry of Higher Education before that on this project, and refocusing on SMEs. And they created the SME Authority, and they have poured on billions of riyals in SMEs in the last year, and the year before that. Also, like the third one, which is ambitious nation, they have zero tolerance for all corruption, levels of corruption, and we have seen Saudi Arabia go into, go in deeply into AML and anti-money laundering, fighting corruption, fighting terrorism over the past years, and they're trying to boost transparency by expanding online services and improving governance standards. And we have seen that all across all governments, all authorities in Saudi. Everything has become online, becomes more streamlined and more open. Moving on to the Vision 2030, the objectives that have been, they put into 96 objectives, strategic objectives, and with that, they narrow them down to 13 or under 13 vision realization programs. Those programs some of them were started before that, some of them are continuation of what has been started, such as the National Transformation Program. There is the PIF program, which is the Public Investment Fund, the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia. All investment today is coming from this PIF. There is housing program, there's strategic partnership, privatization, also like financial sector, where they're consolidating insurance companies today. a lot of things are happening, a lot of things are changing in Saudi Arabia today. Now, with that, we can move forward to the business environment in Saudi, or basically there are 9 sectors that the government have targeted for development, which is the petrochemicals, most importantly, with oil and everything, all others, industrial manufacturing, information and technology, healthcare and life sciences, energy and water, mining and metals, transport and logistics, tourism, culture and entertainment, and emerging sectors. We have seen also, like emerging sectors. We have seen Saudi government pour a lot of money into getting the latest technology to the kingdom, and being leading in drafting laws that are in line with to help regulate these emerging sectors. Now, in order to create this environment that is attractive to both local and foreign investors, they are pursuing public-private partnerships, PPP projects. And today there's a lot of PPP projects going on. Things have stalled a little bit in 2020 with the coronavirus, but today things are kicking off again. They have coordinated with legislative authorities to review the current regulation, and we have seen a lot of laws change since the year 2010 till today. Basically, every law has been changed or have been updated. We have seen laws being updated more than one time. Also, they're allocating prime areas within cities to such as tourism projects, such as NEOM, and for educational institutions. They're trying to put like a King Abdullah financial district, similar to the DIFC. We have seen also there are other initiatives to enable banks and financial institutions to adapt their financial products to each sector, and to focus on SMEs. Now, we have seen them make an open banking initiative lately, being the first in the region. There are a lot of things that are happening. So with that, they're also trying to apply international legal and commercial regulations strictly, because that was an issue for foreigners previously in Saudi. And we have seen for foreigner, you have to have everything international legal standard or regulations have to be applied religiously, and so they can be able to protect themselves. And this is what is happening with the Vision 2030, with these codifying of laws. Now, for foreign investment, the reforms to encourage these the foreign investor has been to improve the business environment and to do a reform in the financial sector. So by doing that, they are opening the foreign investment to foreigners, which has been historically was closed to foreign investor. So basically, there are still some activities that remain exclusive to Saudi investors, to Saudi nationals, such as the oil and mining and investment in Mecca and Medina. Other activities are listed. These activities are listed on what is called the negative list, which include all activities fully or partially reserved for Saudi nationals. This list is constantly reviewed and periodically reviewed by the Saudi authorities, and usually the way it is reviewed, to remove some activities from the negative list and to open them for foreign investment, or to ease their requirements. The foreign investor today are no longer required to have local partners in a number of sectors. They may own property for company activities, and they're allowed to repatriate their company money abroad, the dividends, and they can sponsor foreign employees subject to the Saudization, which we're going to talk to in later in another section. Moving forward to the regular, or to another section, which is the major regulatory or legal changes that has happened through the years, or let's say since the last 20 years. So first of all, there is the restructuring of the courts. This has started in 2012. However, it was only implemented in 2018. in 2018, the commercial disputes were transferred to the commercial courts from the Board of Grievances, which the Board of Grievances now only sees administrative cases. In 2018, also we have seen like labor dispute committees or like moving to labor courts. Everything was moved to a specific court. Another thing that was done was the franchise law, which was done like early 2020, last year. They issued the commercial franchise law and its implementing regulation. Previously, there was no specific franchise law in Saudi. Instead, the franchise arrangements were being done primarily through the commercial agencies law. And basically, it was very restrictive because commercial agencies are restricted to Saudi nationals or 100% Saudi companies. And therefore, this franchise law come at the breath of fresh air where Saudi has opened up in this. We still have a restriction in that, but it is now codified and regulated, and people can you can set up agreement, full-on agreement like you do in other jurisdictions to do franchising. The companies law, there is today the new companies law was done in 2015. It was enacted in 2015. However, today, after 5 years, the Ministry of Commerce and the Capital Market Authority have published a new draft. This new draft is still a draft. It's only for public consultation. However, they have made a lot of amendments in it, which can still change. But some of the amendment that we have seen is that a joint stock company can be established by one person. There's multiple class of shares. There's no more maximum for board members, and the dissolution article, which is controversial article in the companies law, whereas companies, whenever they reach 50% whenever they reach losses that amount to more than 50% of their capital, they have to report this to the Ministry of Commerce. And within a very limited period of time, if they don't do that, the company is automatically dissolved. So this has been removed, but the reporting is still on. Another thing which was a major drive in the update of the law was the enforcement law. Now, in 2013 there was a new enforcement law, and its implementing regulation was enacted in 2017. Now with the new enforcement law, there is something called the enforcement courts, which were created. Now they handle everything that is their competent court in execution all final decisions, and they set out the appeal court of appeal as the primary court to handle these. Now, also for there was an arbitration law. Before that, it was not clear how to do arbitration in Saudi. Today, also in 2017, they passed the arbitration law. It clarified the competent court. It also made one of the major changes is that it set up in Riyadh an arbitration center, and where you can go to, and it also like one of the major things is now arbitration can be served electronically, and now we have seen with the corona and all the courts are going online. Another important thing that usually foreign companies or foreign investors usually ask about, which is the data regulation, where to store the data. In 2020, where this question was also like, it was unclear if you can store it or not. And in 2020, in June 2020, an authority was created, and it published an interim data regulation where it clarified these things. Now we are aware that there is a new Freedom of Information and Protection of Private Data law under review by the former advisory body in the Ksa, the Shura Council. This is similar to international data protection regulation, and is gonna be in line with them. and it's going to be extraterritorial. So like these laws. Now, we expect that this is going to be in this year, in 2021, they're going to issue this law, but it is not yet clear. There's no indication when. Another thing that was changed in 2020 was the commercial courts law, and there is a new law of procedure in front of commercial courts. This new law, it is actually paving the way to modernize the judicial system in Saudi Arabia. That started with the restructuring of the courts. It introduced new measures such as statute of limitation for the first time for commercial claims, payment orders, e-filing, flexibility for the parties to decide the finality of the first instance ruling, and basically everything in the court, everything they can decide beforehand that they want to have it done in 3 months, but there's the judgment publication for the first time, whereas before there was no place where these judgments were not published and they were hard to find. And there's expedited procedure, which is 6 months for the commercial court to be completed and 3 months for the appeal. Also, there was a recent announcement earlier last month where the Crown Prince announced that they're taking further steps in codifying the laws, and where 4 new laws are announced, which is personal status law, civil transactions law, the penal code, and the law of evidence. The plan that was announced is to create a codified legal system in KSA to protect human rights, consolidate principles of justice and transparency, and enhance the kingdom's global competitiveness. Now we can move forward here to another section, which is doing business in Saudi Arabia. Now, first off, when we go to Saudi Arabia, the first entity or authority that we encounter is SAGIA, or it's the Saudi Arabian General Investment Authority, which was recently transformed into a ministry, its own ministry, which is the Ministry of Investment. In order to establish a commercial business in Saudi Arabia, primarily you need a foreign investment license, which is subject to the foreign investment law and its implementing regulation. The foreign investment law opened up applies to any foreign entity or individual who wants to invest in Saudi Arabia, except for GCC nationals. GCC nationals are exempted from the application of this, from applying and getting a foreign investment license, and basically they can go and act as a Saudi. Similar to a Saudi, where they can go to the Ministry of Commerce and open a company directly. SAGIA has, started what has been first started in opening the business or opening the businesses to foreigners, which was started by it was completed by Saudi Arabia joining the World Trade Organization, where the World Trade Organization would say that you have to open your business to all members of the organization, or basically most of the world today. The Ministry of Investment, it grants different type of licenses depending on the activity to be carried out, and these licenses have very different requirements. Some of them have really extensive requirements, really high capital, like the trade license, and some of them have no minimum capital, such as the service license or certain types of service licenses. Now, for foreign investors, the most common or what are the available forms of companies or form of presence that you can establish in Saudi Arabia? Well, the most common one is the LLC, which is the fully owned or a limited liability company. Another form would be the joint stock company. Then there is the mixed entity, which is mixed between foreign and local. So you can have an LLC or joint stock company jointly owned by foreign and Saudi investors. There's also the branch of a foreign company, what is a fully owned branch by the mother company abroad. And there is something called Technical and Scientific Services Office, a TSO, which is a little bit similar to a representative office, and which has changed tremendously through the years with SAGIA. So It was, at some point, it was similar to a representative office, and now its activities are very restricted. And there is a temporary certificate to do a business for a limited amount of time, to do a project, and so these are the main vehicles that foreign investors can do business within Saudi. The most popular structures are mainly the LLC. The LLC is the most common form of establishment in Saudi. The partners in LLC are only liable to the extent of their respective interest in the company and the company's share capital. There's no minimal capital requirements for an LLC specifically. There may be minimum capital requirements for the activity. So the LLC is managed by at least one director, and it can be managed by more than one director. There is preemption rights whenever the new, you have to sell your shares, and there is no limitation on the type of activity that is carried out by LLC. So you don't have to go to a joint stock company. Therefore, it is the most common vehicles that is used today by companies. The other most popular form is the joint stock company. The joint stock company has to have minimum 2 shareholders. It has to have a minimum capital requirement of 500,000 riyals. It is managed by a board of directors. The shares are non-negotiable instruments, and there's no limitation on the type of activities carried out by joint stock company. The joint stock company is usually reserved for financial services or activities that, because of its capital requirements and because of its increased governance, a need of governance or compliance, investors usually opt for the LLC instead, unless they have to go for the joint stock company. Now, for other structures such as the technical and scientific office, it is similar to representative office in other jurisdictions, but in KSA today, as it has changed tremendously through the years, but today it can only be used as a support for registered commercial, as a support for a distributor or a Saudi distributor in Saudi to deal with the local market. Today, the only activity that it can do is just to do market research. So it can only do market research and report that to its mother company. It cannot do any other activities other than that. Another thing, a way of operating, is to appoint the Saudi distributor instead of going in, where you would do the TSO, you appoint a Saudi distributor and to distribute your, and being that a Saudi distributor has to be 100% Saudi. So a foreigner cannot practice this activity. Now, another thing, the other thing was this temporary entity to enter into bids. This foreign company can, if they wanna submit proposals for government projects, they can do this in Sagia. They can do in. This certificate is only valid for 1 year, and it does not entitle the entity to issue a commercial registration. However, this can be transformed into an entity later if the need arises. Now, moving on forward, we move into the tax section. Now, in Saudi Arabia, the foreign investor is under different taxation regime than the local. So the local, whereas he pays 2.5% zakat, the foreigner would pay 20% on net profits or net adjusted profits. The non-Saudi resident individual is also required to pay 20% income on realized profits. Non-Saudi and non-resident individuals, an entity who conduct business in Saudi Arabia through a permanent establishment, also have to, they're also subject to the 20% tax. The share owned by Saudi investors, as we said, are only subject to 2.55% zakat. So that is for the income tax. There is withholding tax in Saudi, and any foreign company or any company in Saudi that is any payment to a non-resident company in Saudi or abroad has to pay the payment is subject to withholding tax. There is 20% on management services, there's 50% on royalties, 5% on technical services, 5% on the repatriation of dividends, and everything else is subject to 15% withholding tax. Now, as you know, there is VAT in Saudi Arabia. There was VAT 5% previously. It was first started in 2018, and then in July 2020, it was hiked to 15% instead. There's also capital gains in Saudi are subject to regular income tax or zakat. Now there is also a rate tax or real estate tax in Saudi. This is for the tax. Moving on to the last section. What are the important matters to know in Saudi for a foreign investor? Basically, one of the most important things that we get asked a lot about is the Saudization. The Ministry of Human Resources and Social Development, which is the Ministry of Labor, has implemented something called nitaqat, or the Nationalization Scheme. This policy it requires companies, the Saudi companies and foreign companies, to hire Saudi nationals on a quota basis. So you have to hire a certain amount of Saudis depending on, or a certain percent of Saudis, depending on the size of your company, on the activities that you are doing. And it's a list that you can find or you can access to on the Ministry of Labor website, and it's constantly changing. It changes regularly. So Saudization also reserves some position to Saudi nationals only. For example, HR, human resources, is a reserved position to Saudi nationals only. Another important thing to know in Saudi is contract law or contract interpretation in Saudi. Basically, there is no Saudi Arabian legislation which sets out general principles of contract law, like other jurisdiction or like the common law. Or the area of contract law is governed by Sharia or the Sharia principles. These Sharia principles are leading the way in how contracts are being interpreted by the courts. And these principles, they include, one of the most important is the freedom of contract, where parties are generally free to negotiate their own terms of contract. However, it cannot violate Sharia. So and we have seen, especially when foreign companies come to Saudi, a lot of these agreements cannot be enforced in Saudi or a lot of parts of this agreement cannot be enforced because it's not Sharia compliant. Another important principle is the fairness and good faith principle, where it has to be, the contracting parties must observe and maintain principles of fairness and equity in their dealings. It cannot be like one party is benefiting greatly and the other is not benefiting at all. There is the unjust enrichment principle, and one of the most commonly principles that there is no interest in Saudi Arabia. Interest in contracts are not enforceable and they're not Sharia compliant. So these are some of the general Islamic principles that are included in that we need to know when drafting a contract in Saudi. Another point is the governing law and jurisdiction. The concept of private international law or conflict law is not recognized by courts in Saudi. The Saudi Arabian competent courts and judicial committees may not recognize the choice of foreign law that you can set in the agreement, and they can declare that they are competent, and they can relook into. We have seen them relook into a court that has been looked or that has been finalized in other jurisdictions previously. And sometimes, historically, like Saudi Arabian courts, they apply Saudi Arabian law, even if you put a foreign law in the contract. Recently, we have seen in rare instances, and it has been growing, that Saudi courts have decided that they don't have jurisdiction to hear the dispute because there is a clause of a foreign jurisdiction in the agreement. Now, for arbitration, another thing that we commonly are asked, or is enforcement and arbitration. Basically with the enforcement law, today an arbitral award or judgment obtained in a country outside kingdom or outside Saudi Arabia can be submitted to the enforcement court and be enforced, provided that it is not inconsistent with Saudi Arabian laws and Islamic Sharia. Now, there are a list of requirements that you have to check when going that. The enforcement court can refuse to enforce if there is another case that has been already started in Saudi Arabia, or a final judgment has been rendered in Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi Arabia has also is a signatory of the New York Convention, which has acceded in 1994, and which regulates the reciprocity with a reciprocity reservation. So basically, Saudi Arabia said, I'm acceding to the New York Convention. However, if a country does not enforce my Saudi judgments, I will not enforce theirs in reciprocity. Another important law to consider, and that foreigners need to really consider, is the anti-fronting law or the anti-concealment law. Basically, this law says that any operation in Saudi that is viewed as a cover-up activity is penalized. So if you are avoiding application of any other law, such as getting a license, foreign investment license from the Ministry of Investment, from SAGA, then the anti-fronting law or anti-concealment law would apply, and you would be subject to heavy penalties. Now, so basically any Saudi who enables a non-Saudi to use Saudi licenses, because Saudi does not need a foreign investment license, therefore a lot of foreigners would go and operate under a Saudi company or under a Saudi person to do their business. And here you can see that the violators are jailed for up to 5 years and fined up to 5 million riyals. And the foreign party involved in it can be subject to heavy taxation from the GAST. So basically, they would look retroactively on the activities that has been done. They would subject 20% VAT, 20% income tax on it, and you would be barred from working in the KSA in the kingdom in the future, which is really restrictive. So now we can also there is also we can skip that. So you have seen recently the decision to move headquarters to KSA. So it was announced recently that as of January 1st, 2024, the Saudi government would not accept, or all state government agencies would not work with, will no longer contract or give bids or awards to companies who does not have the regional headquarters set up in Saudi Arabia. Now, in the announcement, they also said that there will be many tax breaks. There will be tax breaks for a longer period, an exemption from the application of Saudi if you move your headquarters to Saudi Arabia. And there is a lot of international firms have already said they will move, such as Deloitte, PwC, and PepsiCo. They decided to move last month with the announcement to move to their headquarters to the kingdom. Now, this will conclude the presentation. I don't know if you have any questions. Regarding any section or anything else.
Basically, John, just to kickstart the questions exercise, I have a couple of questions that I would like to propose and that I have been asked to ask you, basically. And I will split these actions depending on their topic, just to make sure that they complement the different sections you have covered in your presentation. To start with the setup, basically, I wanted to give us a brief about the current approach that SAGIA is following in terms of dealing with licenses. We are aware that historically it was practically difficult to obtain a license from SAGIA, and applicants needed a very strong application with a very strong background to be able to substantiate the request to apply for a license and being granted a license on the basis of foreign investment. So we understand nowadays that this is no longer the exercise, and SAGIA is more proactive. Can you give us more information about this and how currently a license is being entertained by SAGIA for foreign investors?
Yes, sure. Well, basically, once you go into Saudi, the first entity or authority that you encounter is SAGIA, which is today the Ministry of Investment. Now, the Ministry of Investment, since its inception, it started to give breaks or give a lot of it started to reduce the requirements of foreign investors and to try to centralize all the requirements within itself. So you have to deal with one authority instead of dealing with 20 authorities. And as you know, in Saudi, there are like many authorities. There are many post requirement. Once you incorporate the company, there are many licenses that you have to get subsequently from 5 authorities, from 5 different authorities, and this take a long time. And what SAGIA has done is that foreign investors now have to go to SAGIA, and things have drastically moved from dealing with SAGIA for a month to now a couple of days. You can be done with this part, and you can be granted a foreign investment license really quickly. SAGIA is very responsive, is available online. You can deal with it, and we have previously worked with SAGIA on many different projects, and we have seen their commitment to really understand what needs to be changed and work on it and implement it. And this has definitely, we can say today that at least going into Saudi is really easy. Today it's really easy to go and deal with SAGIA and deal with the Ministry of Investment. It's one of the most, we're really happy to work with it. When we have something you have like new incorporations.
Sure. So this is like a very positive change, because one of the main things investors were concerned with is the time needed to obtain a license from SAGIA, and sometimes it could obstruct the ability to apply for a tender or be able to take on board a new project because of the time needed to apply for a license. With the new changes now and the ability of companies to go submit and obtain a license in 1 month, for example, is something that's huge for foreign investors, and could even change the overall perception of KSA and the ease of doing business in KSA. So this is, I think, of prime importance, because investors who have experience working in Saudi will be worried when it comes to dealing with SAGIA. So knowing this will be a relief, I'm sure. Something else, you have basically in your presentation, you spoke about the general principles that relate to contracts. Basically the general principles of contracts, which deals with good faith, the no interest rule, and so on and so forth. How do you think the application of these principles from the perception of Sharia, and how these will be changed in due course after the codifications of laws in Saudi Arabia? As you're aware, we know that the government announced their intention to codify the laws, and this is a very important step in creating a legal framework that's very clear and transparent to everybody. And with the codification, obviously the discretion that the judges have in terms of interpreting situations will be restricted to a certain extent. So how do you think these principles will change after the codifications of the law, And on the interest issue, how do you see courts dealing with it in the context of commercial transactions or delaying payments and so on and so forth?
Yes, well, basically, to start up with the first question, the codification of law that is happening today, basically it is done under the Sharia law, or under these Sharia principles. So these principles will always be there. We cannot like bypass them. So even if they're codified, they're going to codify these principles, which going to help ease out and which going to help remove the interpretation, as you said, like the different interpretation by the judges. And we have seen that in a lot of previous laws, whereas it was unclear, and we have seen similar in similar circumstances, we have seen judges pass different sentences or different judgments, whereas the facts are all similar because of their different interpretations of Sharia. So this will tremendously help, and it will encourage foreign investors to come into Saudi and to understand that everything is clear now, and they can know beforehand what they have been signing. Now, for the interest, usually if there is, for example, there is also an application, there is a clause in a contract that is not in accordance with Sharia principles, for example, such as interest, this clause will be removed or will not be applied by the judges, and the whole contract, it will be severed from the contract, and the contract will be applied except for this clause. So not the whole contract will be void. And this has been some kind of a stable thing in the courts today. So we have seen.
That's very interesting. Yeah. We've seen also some cases where the court substituted the interest with some with a compensation, but again, these cases remain very discretionary, and the approach to how they apply damages or compensation in Saudi will be very much left to the discretion of judges in the context of the Sharia principles, obviously. But again, we have seen a lot of new cases that address the need to reward or award a party for the excessive damage they've sustained as a result of the action of the other party. This is very interesting. In this context, also on the enforceability and the validity of certain agreements, basically it's very common that we see shareholders agreement, the usual shareholders or the standard shareholders agreement with clauses including tag along, drag along, preemption, non-compete, and so on and so forth. How do you see these agreements being enforced in Saudi, and whether it is acceptable for the shareholders in a company to sign these type of agreements or to negotiate these kind of arrangements, and ensuring eventually that they can be enforced and fully implemented within the jurisdiction?
Yes. Now we encourage people to sign a shareholder agreement. This is very important to preserve your right, because article of association in Saudi Arabia are not or have to contain certain elements, and they're not really similar to what is in other jurisdictions. So they're very restrictive, let's say. So usually the other arrangement is usually done through a shareholder agreement. Now in Saudi, the law is Sharia law, so it is not civil law and it is not common law, and it is basically a little. There are some elements of civil law that are there in combination with Sharia, but common law is there are a lot of elements that are not recognizable. A lot of concepts are not recognizable, and shareholder agreement to be enforceable in Saudi, they have to be. We have seen like basically a lot of like contradiction from the courts sometimes in their application, whereas some courts said that shareholder agreement have to be registered in the Ministry of Commerce, where you have to go and register this in order to especially when there is discrepancy with the Articles of Association in order to prevail over the Articles of Association. However, it is still enforceable if it is not registered in the Ministry of Commerce. And a lot of these concepts where you have to set it out, the problem that we encountered usually or previously in Saudi is that the judges were not specialized, and they wouldn't understand what this tag-along clause would mean. Whereas today, with the introduction of the commercial courts, and we have specialized commercial judges, these concepts are now being more accepted. Judges, are now more aware of these concepts, and therefore things are going along more smoothly, and for doing these types of agreements.
No, I agree. The introduction of the commercial courts helped a lot in having specialized judges overlooking commercial disputes. And it's really important for investors to understand how to draft contracts that are acceptable under Saudi laws. So it's very common that the standard clauses that we see in shareholders agreements drafted under common law are not widely acceptable in Saudi Arabia, which is to a certain extent the civil jurisdiction. And on that basis, we need to make sure that we accommodate or implement the requirements and expectations of the shareholders in a way that could be acceptable under the local regulations. I think this is primordial. I just have two more questions. And I think this will allow us to finish right on time. The first one is on Saudization. We know that this is a main concern for many companies looking to set up in Saudi. And as this can affect their ability to hire talents from abroad, or even to transfer some of their employees from their home jurisdictions to their offices in Saudi. So how do you see companies dealing with this? And what do you recommend for investors to consider when looking at Saudization and the requirements to comply with the Nitaqat set of policies?
Yes, well, basically for Saudization, I think the most important thing is to embrace Saudization and not fight it, because this is, and use the local resources that you have at your disposal today. Saudization was made at the outset in order to encourage employers to hire Saudis and to have a more skilled Saudi workforce. And we have seen today that Saudis have they're acquiring a lot of the skill set, and today foreign companies can embrace Saudization, can hire from the local force, and this will enable them to also penetrate the market better with these Saudi locals who would understand the government, would understand the authorities better, would understand what needs to be done on the ground, and this. So I think the best way is to just embrace it and just to just go with it. And
yes, totally. I understand where you're coming from, and this is dealing with it as a positive requirement is very essential to be able to move ahead with any investment in Saudi. And I believe the government even have put in place a set of procedures that will support corporations meeting the requirements of Saudization in a way that will allow them to have access to talents, but being able to engage with Saudis who are fit for the position they're looking for. And I think this will complement their engagement in the Saudi market, and will also allow them to optimize the use of the jurisdiction, reducing the cost of overheads by using local talents, and so on and so forth. So this is very relevant. One more question that basically it's a positive development in Saudi. We're starting seeing women in the workplace, more women in the workplace. We're seeing more faces wherever we go, and dealing with women is very positive. So what's the situation now in respect of employment laws when it comes to women and women in the workforce?
Well, basically, we have been going to Saudi for a very long time. I've been, present in Saudi for more than 10 years, and we have seen things change drastically through the years. Like, you cannot imagine, like, the change that has been done over the last 3 years, for example, with women like driving, with women leading. A lot of things have changed. Things have changed tremendously with the change of laws, and today, like, women are more encouraged to go into, and there are some encouragement when it comes to the laws and the human resources laws and the labor laws or the ministry regulations, where if you employ women, you have more incentives, or you are incentivized to employ women. So things have been changed tremendously. We have seen a lot of the restrictions that have been previously have just been eliminated. We have seen Saudi move like drastically in this direction, and it's been like a breath of fresh air, let's say. I'm not sure if you're muted, Rima. I think you're muted.
You're right, I'm muted. Thank you very much for your answers, basically, and for the presentation. We're just on time to finish the webinar. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them forward. We'll be more than happy to open a new discussion or to discuss any of the issues you need clarification on. Otherwise, I believe we can move ahead and close the session.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rima and John, for this great presentation today. It was very informative, and we learned a lot about working in Saudi Arabia. Now, before we sign off, I just wanted to remind each of you that in the next few days, Meritas will distribute a copy of this presentation, a recording of the webinar, as well as Rima and John's contact details. So please don't hesitate to reach out to them directly if you have any questions. With that, thank you again for taking the time to join us. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.